Hello, Art Bell. This is Dean from Venice. Are you familiar with the program content of ABC Nightline for Friday night? Yes, I am actually, Dean. This fax is to inform you of the topic for those of you that did not see it. I believe you'll find it interesting and hope you'll discuss it on your show. They covered alien life forms, mainly of microbiological and bacterial origin. They stated that a probe was sent to the moon before the Apollo mission. In that probe was a solar panel that an installation technician sneezed on. The bacteria left on the panel was launched to the moon. The probe stayed on the moon for 2 years in a zero-oxygen, highly radioactive environment. When the Apollo NASA mission retrieved the probe, they discovered the bacteria to be alive and active. Scientists are concerned that bringing soil samples back from Mars could contain microbial life forms that are not killed by the harsh environment of space. They spoke about the very real possibility that these life forms could have serious negative impact on Earth. If you have seen this Nightline segment, I would like to hear your opinion and ask you to open the topic for discussion. Yeah, sure. Dean, by the way, thank you for the facts, Dean. I think that's pretty good evidence that such a thing is indeed possible, and that if we bring back material objects, rocks, whatever, such a thing could occur. However, bear in mind that the Earth is constantly being bombarded by meteorites of various size, many of which do not burn up in the atmosphere, one of which we now know contains microbial life from Mars. So if that danger was real, then we should have already been infected by, and perhaps are infected by, and one day will be infected by something from somewhere else that doesn't quite burn up completely in the atmosphere. So I would think the risk of bringing back something from Mars would be no bigger than we experience as a general basis as meteorites re-enter and make it.
When I worked in Las Vegas, and for a number of years I did the program in Las Vegas, from the Union Plaza Hotel, it was called at that time. And one night when I was doing a show, this very night, as a matter of fact, a lady called up and claimed to be a witch. She gave me some very, very disconcerting information, personal knowledge, which I actually bleeped off the air. It was so personal, I couldn't believe that she could possibly know these things about me. And toward the end of the call, she said she was going to come and leave something for me. Well, she left me a Ouija board, an ancient Ouija board. I have never, nor will I to this day, tell you what has happened to that Ouija board. But when you call upon spirits, when you call upon the dark side, and you do it with something, an instrument, it does not matter, you'd better be damn careful what you're doing. Ouija boards are an opening. They're an opening into a world where there are things that you may not really wish to meet. So my advice to you, without telling you the detailed story of this board, which is frightening, my advice to you is do not play with Ouija boards. It's like opening a door, and you just don't know what's going to walk through.
First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi. Hi, this is Linda.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
Good. My radio is not on.
Oh, Linda, you're a good girl. Where are you?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, okay.
Anyway, I wanted to call to tell you about my nephew.
Your nephew?
I was actually there when he was born. I wasn't in the room, but I was right outside.
Yes.
It was kind of a stressful delivery. He had this thing called meconium, where he sucked in a bowel movement while he was being born.
Whoa.
So he was rushed by me really quick. Of course, my brother was freaking out the entire time, thinking he was going to die. I just remember when they took him in front of me, I felt this cold chill, and I really got sick to my stomach thinking he was going to die, but then I just felt this presence. And anyway, that I never really told anyone about that.
So in other words, you're telling me that the little one was evil.
It just felt really cold, and I'd felt other things before and seen things.
And how long ago was this?
This is 5 years, about.
5 years. So in other words, our little tyke is now 5 years old.
Yeah, and see, we've always joked, my boyfriend and I, about him being evil, you know, because he was born on June 25th, and we always thought that was funny. It was kind of like, 6 months after Christmas, and we used to joke around and call him the Antichrist.
Uh-huh. So how is little Damien now?
Well, there's been incidents.
Like what?
Things with my other nieces and nephews. He tried to gouge out my other niece's eyes.
Oh, that's a sign right there.
Yeah, it was really, I didn't witness it. My boyfriend did, and my father did. And my father would never believe anything like this, so he took us all aside and said we need to keep him away from all the other children. And so we did that, but now when I heard your whole thing the other night about the Antichrist, I was almost relieved, thinking that he's been found and he's not my nephew.
I see.
Yeah.
And so what else has little Damien done?
There's been animal incidents. They live really out in a farm town, kind of about, 200 miles away. And there's been things they haven't been able to have a cat, and he's thrown cats around by their tails, done things, other things I'm sure that I haven't even heard about. These are all just rumors, too, among my other brothers. So
suppose something happened and you were suddenly in charge. You had to take care of little Damien and raise little Damien from now on. What would you do?
I don't know what I'd do. That's what I'm really worried about, is hearing about things. Who knows what's going to happen? Are there going to be missing things when he gets into his teens? Are we going to? We've joked about this, thinking that we'd hear about animal mutilations happening, and maybe But now that I'm hearing more about this, there's maybe others out there. I would want to know what I'd have to do if I found absolute proof that he really is.
I mean, most 5-year-olds are just sort of pulling stuff off coffee tables and, causing that. And little Damien's gouging out eyes and taking care of cats.
And doesn't really seem to have a soul. You kind of look at him, compared to, because my niece is the same exact age.
Blank eyes?
Blank eyes, nothing there, but extremely intelligent with, block building and pictures, and very artful, and knows everything, and talked very early.
Probably the first word it said was Armani.
Let me write that down. Wow, this is really... Anyway, I really consider this a privilege, even talking to you.
Well, it's a privilege talking to you. I'm a little worried for you.
I also wanted to ask you if Kathleen Keating had any type of advice, how you'd handle this if I did find maybe something in his hairline when I babysat him, or
you found, numbers?
Yeah, if I did, which I haven't, but if I, were to find anything, what would I do? There'd be no way they would believe anything like this.
Well, there'd probably be no way you could live to tell us about it.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't think I'd look. Well, maybe I would. I don't know. Stay in touch. Dear, I had to fax when I heard other time travelers calling in from any time past the year 2500 AD. Please let me explain. Time travel was invented in 2034. Offshoots of certain successful fusion reactor research allowed scientists at CERN to produce the world's first contained singularity engine. The basic design involves rotating singularities inside a magnetic field. By altering the speed and direction of rotation, you can travel both forward and backward in time. Time itself can be understood in terms of connected lines. When you go back in time, you travel on your original
timeline. When you turn the singularity engine off, a new timeline is created due to the fact that you and your time machine are now there. In other words, a new universe is created. To get back to your original line, you must travel a split second farther back and immediately throw the engine into forward without turning it off. Some interesting outcomes of this are: 1. You meet yourself. I have done it often, even taken a younger version of myself along for a few rides before returning myself to the new timeline and going back to mine. 2. You can alter history in the new universe that you have just created. Most of the time, the changes are subtle. Sometimes I'll notice car models that don't exist or books that come out late. The oldest one was a skyscraper that wasn't built in a near-favorite store of mine in New York. Interestingly, when you travel in time, you must compensate for the orbit of the Earth. Since the time machine doesn't move, you have to adjust the engine so you remain on the planet when you turn it off. Unfortunately, it was also discovered that anyone going forward in time from my 2036 hit a brick wall in the year 2564. Everyone who has ever been there has reported that nothing exists. When the machine is turned off, you find yourself surrounded by blackness and silence. Now, most time travelers are trying to find out where the line went bad by going into the past, creating a new universe, and proceeding forward to see if the same thing results in 2564. It appears the line went bad around the year 2000. I'm here now, in this time, to test a few theories of mine before going forward. Now, for the future, you might want to know about. 1. Y2K is a disaster. Many people die on the highways when they freeze to death trying to get to warmer weather. 2. The government tries to keep power by instituting martial law, but all of it collapses when their efforts to bring the power back up fail. 3. A power facility in Denver is able to restart itself, but is mobbed by hundreds of thousands of people and destroyed. This convinces most that maybe we shouldn't bring the old system back up. 4. A few years later, communal government system is developed after the Constitution takes a few twists. China retakes Taiwan. Israel wins the largest battle for their life, and Russia is covered in nuclear snow from their collapsed reactors. Art, the reason I'm here now is because I believe a nuclear weapon set off by Iraq in the Middle East war with Israel might have something to do with the damaged timeline. I will test that theory and get back to you. Please pray that we discover the reason why there is no apparent future after 2564. So I couldn't resist. I thought that was quite a good fax. There you have it. Time Traveler Line, you're on the air.
How you doing?
Call us toll-free at 1-800-618-8255. You made me bleep that out. Bob, we don't allow last names on the air.
Sorry about that.
So let's try all over again. Your name is Bob.
Bob.
And where are you? West to the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
How are you doing this evening, Art?
Quite well, sir.
Blessing to you and Happy New Year to you and your wife, Ramona.
Thank you. Same to you.
Mine is also about alien contact.
Oh.
But it's more extensive than your previous callers because I've had these contacts since I was 5 years old. I'm now 59. Raised and born in Los Angeles. I have a top-secret clearance with the U.S. government through the Army in the field of cryptography, which I acquired in 68 through 70. And I spent my tour of duty in South Korea with the 7th Division in Camp Casey, and that's where I was informed by a lieutenant colonel that the U.S. government has knowledge of these contacts because I was told that I had a red file on myself.
All right, let's slow down.
Okay.
Who informed you that the U.S. government had official contact? There
was a lieutenant colonel that was active in the 7th Division during the period of 69-70 when I was on tour there.
Under what circumstances would he tell you something like that? I mean,
well, there was a situation that was going on at that time in South Korea that many of the Americans that were at Camp David was aware of. There was high racial tension at that particular time because of what was happening in the United States.
Right.
And I was involved with a particular group of people that was involved in various investigations.
Okay.
Long story short was that this gentleman who had contacted me very secretly had informed me that there were individuals on the base at the time that felt that my knowledge of certain things was injurious to them and that I was in danger. He informed me that the U.S. government was not going to allow anything to happen to me because I had a red file on me. That's the first time that I ever had access to that kind of information. What he did to confirm and verify that he was valid, there were things that he told me in a 2-hour secret meeting that occurred within the livelihoods and the life of my family members that only could have been known by just family members. It's almost as if there was a taping device in the house or on the phone.
They knew things.
Oh,
yeah,
very, very, very.
Okay, we don't have a lot of time, so you got to get to the bottom line.
Now, what transpired after that is that he informed me that they knew that I had had contacts for a very long time in my life. Now, I'm going to go beyond that. I'm just giving you information to verify that you're talking to someone who's actually had it. I ran for mayor of Gardena in Los Angeles in 2001, and people can look on the internet for
find out who you are by that means. Okay, so
exactly. Okay, so now what I want to tell you is this: is that I've had contact with several different species, energy forms, humanoid forms, bipedals that are not human-looking.
Okay, if you've had all this contact, then I ask you the standard questions. Do you have any idea what their motives are?
I do.
Why they're... Okay, good. Go ahead. I want to know. What?
Okay, number one is that 99.9% of those that are now visiting the Earth are not hostile. They are here because the Earth is in a great, difficult time. The shield of the Earth is starting to disintegrate. They're in the process of trying to rejuvenate that. But beyond that, these species have told me that mankind is about to annihilate itself in nuclear war, that biogenetic experimentation has been initiated so that there would be a preservation of the human consciousness and the gene.
Oh, my God.
Mixed with alien life forms that would exist elsewhere.
So, in other words, we're about to blow ourselves to smithereens. They're taking samples of us to ensure that some humanity is...
That's correct.
Saved, like so many endangered species.
That's correct.
Oh, my God.
And everybody makes the joke about the little green men that come from Mars.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they exist, but they don't come from Mars. They're about 3 feet tall.
Uh-huh.
I am not the only one on the planet. As a matter of fact, there are many of your listeners that will call in and verify this, that they are one of the major entities at the moment initiating biogenetic experimentation, and I was shown a female hybrid human mixed with their particular alien DNA. This female was about 13 or 14 years old. She was about 4 feet high. She had the power of levitation. She had pure white hair. That made it strange. Green epidermis, pure white hair, pure white teeth, but she had the physiognomy of one of my daughters. and very, very beautiful, highly intelligent, and very telepathic. Mankind is being visited by our brothers and sisters that want to help us. Also, what I need to tell you, which is very dire. I was shown in this craft with these smaller green entities a very large screen. It looked like a movie screen. I was shown Los Angeles, New York, and Washington being struck by nuclear weapons. I also was shown an asteroid that was going to hit the Earth. It was going to come across the United States at nighttime from east to west. A large portion falls off somewhere near Wyoming, and the largest portion falls off just east of the Big Island of Hawaii, which will cause a tidal wave at night several miles high, striking and destroying the San Francisco Bay Area. And all that was left, is when the water receded, was the northern portion of the Golden Gate Bridge.
God.
Yeah.
You've given us an awful lot to chew on.
I was also to tell you this. You are, this year, 2005, you and your wife, there's this evolvement that you have made in the last few years. You are now spiritually on the level for contact. And the woman who spoke about the cat that is coming to you, the tomcat that's coming to you, I want to let you know something, is that through this particular entity that's coming, it's going to heighten your contact level.
First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Yes. My name is Bob. I'm calling from St. Petersburg, Florida.
Hi, Bob.
And I was listening tonight. You were talking to the gentleman from the Tampa Triangle.
Oh yes. That was a Dreamland show.
Yes, and you were talking about combustible internal spontaneous combustion, people dying.
That's correct.
I had an aunt, a great aunt, died from that.
You're kidding?
In Dallas.
In Dallas?
Yes, she was her sister-in-law and her sister-in-law's son went into a store and left her sitting in the car, in a Cadillac out in front of a store.
Right.
And they came out, and she was just engulfed in flames.
You're kidding.
She did live till they got her to the hospital, but she never said anything. And they...
well, what in the hell did the autopsy show?
Just like it started burning. Just started a fire. Nobody had thrown a cigarette or anything on her like that. And there was absolutely... It was cloth seats in the car, and there was not even a char mark on the seat of the car. And she had been an actress. In fact, she was in the 20s. She had acted in road shows with Pat O'Brien in the old days. And she was written up in a book. Somebody wrote a book years ago about all the people that had died this way.
Look, I've interviewed people, thank you, who have written books on this subject, and I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. I mean, it's simply impossible. Even wearing clothes. I'm a smoker. You know, if you drop a cigarette in your lap, believe me, in a few seconds you notice it and you jump a mile high. And there's really nothing sitting in a car that I could imagine that would possibly burn a person up without touching the seat. God, it's horrible. But there are so many cases chronicled. I've got photographs. They're very gruesome on the website of people who have burned themselves, literally burned their bodies. And apparently from the inside out, it's unimaginable. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Is this Art Bell?
It is.
How you doing, Art Bell?
Okay, where are you?
I'm from Brookhaven, Mississippi.
All right.
I called you in December, and we talked about the Yeti Yale. You know.
Yes. Would you turn your radio off for us, sir?
Okay, turn your radio off.
Yes. Turn that radio off.
Okay, I'm sorry. What's going on?
I don't know, sir. You called me. So you tell me what's going on.
Let's see, that red tide, you know, that's something, you know, fantastic.
The red tide now reported not just in North Carolina, but many, many parts of the world. Fish kills, yeah.
That is something else. I tell you, I don't I just love your show, and I think it's real cool. Okay?
Cool.
Cool.
I think it's cool.
Uh-huh.
All right, I appreciate the call. Cool. Yeah, the show's cool. On my weird person line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello, Art.
Hello.
My name is Teddy.
Okay.
My friends call me Terrible Teddy. They think I'm kind of weird, and while I think I'm very normal.
Well, why do they think you're weird?
Well, I do have a fascination with death. You remember the videos, Faces of Death?
Oh, yes.
I've rented it 27 times.
Really?
I find it mildly erotic. And
really?
I don't know. I think that's normal, but I just think death...
Wait a minute. You think Death and Faces of Death was a videotape, for those who don't know, that depicted people dying in truly horrible, awful ways.
Oh, I loved it.
Really?
Yeah, and they think, for some reason, they say, I have a coffee can full of old toenails, ranging from celebrities down to...
Wait. You collect toenails?
I have a toenail collection, that's right. It ranges from celebrities down to my neighbor, and I am quite proud of it, actually.
How, as a matter of interest, how do you get these toenails? I mean, it's not something you can ask people for.
Well, in fact, I do ask for them, and on occasion, if I notice someone is clipping their toenails, I'll wait politely till they're finished, and then collect them when they leave.
Do you sometimes have to do so covertly? In other words...
Well, as I say, I'm kind of proud of the toenail collection, and so I don't mind if someone sees me, and I'm not afraid to talk to them about it.
How many, you say you've got, well, give me an estimate. How many toenails do you suppose you have totally?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure of the number, but a coffee can full is a good size and a large amount.
That's a lot of toenails. How long have you been collecting them?
For about 5 years, actually. I'm about ready to fill the can and start a new one, so it's exciting for me. Another day, I found a very large ant in my backyard, and I wonder what these ants do during the day.
Yeah.
So I followed them. I followed them for about 5 hours.
You spent 5 hours following an ant?
Through my backyard, my neighbor's yard, into the street, and across the street, and I'll tell you, he went down the sewer, and I lost him. It took a while to get the lid off, but to be honest with you, I think he ditched me.
So in other words, by the time you were able to lift the lid... He was gone.
Yeah.
But you spent 5 hours following an ant.
I thought it was very stimulating. I felt there was something they were going somewhere. They're very busy. I just wanted to know where, but he did get away from me. And apparently it's a long trip just across the yard, so maybe they don't get too much accomplished, but they're very busy.
Well, how are you able to devote so much time to the Faces of Death 27 times, collecting toenails, following ants? I mean, these are time-consuming things.
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, I do sacrifice a lot of sleep. Of course, I do listen to your show often, and so that takes a lot of my time, and it gives me a chance also to engage in these activities, because I have a portable radio and headphones and such. So you do kind of ride along with me now. That, I think, is weird, but... As
a matter of curiosity, you've got this coffee can full of toenails. How do you know which ones came from a celebrity?
I tagged them, of course.
You tagged them?
A little piece of masking tape to identify them ones. Some of them are just kind of run-of-the-mill, and so I don't bother with that. But the very famous ones are people who I consider to be famous.
Give me a name or two famous toenails that you have.
Well, I've got hold on a second. Let me see. I've got a list here. I did buy a set that someone told me came from Madonna's toes.
From who? Did you say Madonna?
That's right. I was in Los Angeles visiting at the time and at a beach, and someone offered them to me, and I'm not sure if this was someone who you consider a toenail dealer, or he just was maybe playing a joke. But
were these given to you freely, or
no.
Did you have to pay
money for those?
You paid for them.
$165.
Oh my God!
And of course, I value those greatly.
Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, Art. I'm calling from the Midwest, and I'd like to remain anonymous if I could.
You could.
In the fall of 1976, I was the individual that released the MJ12 briefing document and Truman's letter to the public.
You did?
Yes, sir.
In what manner did you do that? Well, first of all, let's back up. Where did you get the document?
I got the document where I was assigned. I was a clerk for one of the military agencies in Washington, D.C.
All right.
And I worked for a 4-star admiral in a government-leased building in Arlington, Virginia.
All right.
And I had been ordered to destroy that document along with a whole bunch of others and several drawers worth, and came across that. I had the chance to make a photocopy of the briefing document, the President's letter, and the first page of the operations manual, but didn't feel I had time to make copies of other documents that were in the drawers.
What did you do with the copy?
I took it home, read it over quite a few times, obviously, and decided that it needed to be made public. And I took it to an organization in the Washington, D.C. area that I believed would have the facility or the way to make that happen. And obviously it did. I think the document went through a number of different hands and times and places before it got released in the form that most people know of it now. The place that I was working at in D.C. was it was a very high-level military office. The admiral that I worked for reported directly to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and to the Chief of Naval Operations.
So what you did was very much like what Daniel Ellsberg did with the Pentagon Papers.
It's an interesting analogy.
Yes, it is. How much thinking and consideration did you give it before you made these public?
Quite a bit, because first of all, reading that, what I read in there was just out of my parameter of life, I had never heard of that type of thing before. I came from a fairly religious background. Such a thing wasn't even considered what was being talked about in that
document. Do you believe that document, the MJ12 document, to be absolutely authentic?
Absolutely. And the reason I do was not only, where it was and how it was treated and how it was handled, the general handling of it. There were names and individuals in the files that were associated with it that were more current, and specifically people.
Are there any documents that you did not turn over that you still retain?
No, sir. At that time, I was really concerned about being found out after having released it.
Now, you sound scared now. You also sound young. How old are you?
I appreciate the young part. I'm in my mid-40s. I am scared about this, obviously.
Obviously.
I have talked to one other individual who researches this type of thing, but I really don't, who I am and what I'm about is not as important as what was in that document.
Of course not.
And the specific reason I'm calling this morning is there was an individual, military at that time, I believe, individual in cover letters to that document that is still alive today and I think has an obligation to come forward with what he knows. I won't name him specifically, but I'll give a clue. And the clue is that individual turned down a very high-level military nomination or post. He had been nominated by the president or named by the president to take a post, and he very abruptly, and many say without reason, stepped down from that post and did not take the post.
Well, that's a hell of a story you've just told.
It's gone back into private life.
I think people are going to be able to figure out who it is based on that kind of a hint.
And that individual, he's out there. He's kept secrets successfully for more than 30 years.
You want to force him out. That's what this is all about.
I want him out.
I understand.
I want him out. I want him to talk about what he knows.
All right. Do you remember, you should be just barely old enough, or if not, you probably saw the movie. Do you remember the Nixon administration? Remember the scandal?
Yes, sir. You
remember the operative who was feeding Woodward and Bernstein the information at the Washington Post? They called him Deep Throat, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
From now on, when you can communicate with me,
Send me email or send me a letter or whatever you might do to back this story up, which I hope you will do. I want you to refer to yourself as Deep Doo-Doo.
Roswell happened.
Roswell was real.
Roswell. It was real. We had an alien that was in captivity up until 1951. He was kept at Kirtland. He was kept at Los Alamos. He died in the latter part of 1951. Linda Howe interviewed that alien's handling person. It was an Air Force officer.
Yeah, she mentioned it in her book.
Yeah.
You saw the film, so I
saw the film.
That means you saw the alien.
I saw the alien.
And you would describe this alien in what way?
He was about 3 foot 8 inches tall. He had the large eyes. He's a typical gray-looking one that you see now. I mean, they're portraying. Didn't have a thumb. Had 4 fingers. He actually was portrayed almost depicted perfectly on that program back in, I think, in 1988, UFO
Cover-Up Live.
Cover-Up Live, yeah.
Uh-huh.
In fact, his actual diagram was provided to a source through Roy Patterson. I mean, that was right there on the television, and he died in 1951.
Well, that whole show was a whole disinformation operation. Because at the end, Robert Collins or somebody there, one of the other agents that was in shadow there with the voice disguise, said that the aliens like Tibetan music and strawberry ice cream, and at that point, everybody shut down and said this is ridiculous.
Well, yeah, but the truth about that is that's exactly what was written. That was exactly what was written in the Red Book is our history of the extraterrestrial visitation. That's true. That's not a lie. That's true. I know it turned people off, but exactly, that's true.
Give people the truth, and that turns them off because it's just so unbelievable.
But that worked as disinformation because it turned people off. But that's the truth. That alien liked ice cream. He liked strawberry ice cream. They didn't have teeth. They couldn't chew. Everything they took in had to be a fluid.
First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
I was working in Germany in 1980, and I worked there for a year, and I had an apartment on a Kaserne, which is a military for the U.S. government.
Yes.
And my apartment was in an old barracks that had been used for the SS. It used to be an SS barracks.
Right.
And I had a really nice apartment. It was 1 bedroom, and I moved in, and I was single. Immediately I started having very sexy, sensual dreams with a man who was dressed with boots. He had those really high boots, and he had like a white pirate shirt on.
Really?
And there was a woman in the background, and we would have sex practically every night. And I just thought, wow, I must be very lonely. I never woke up from them, but I had these...
No, you're a million miles from being alone. This is actually quite common.
And then my girlfriend came over like a month later to live with me, and she got a job. And she woke up the first night there screaming because she saw him standing in her doorway. And he tried to have sex with her, and she wanted nothing to do with it.
We've had like multiple witnesses now, several calls tonight with multiple witnesses, and here's another one. So she wouldn't have a thing to do with it, huh?
No, and then my mother came to visit, and the first morning my mother, I was 32, my mother was 56, and the first morning she got up and she said, well, I must be missing your father very much because I had this dream last.
Well, by the time your mom got there, didn't you feel somewhat incumbent on your part to warn people?
I didn't even think of warning her. I mean, I was just so excited about having her there, it never dawned on me. And so I told. Then, of course, my girlfriend Joan and my mom, and we sat there and we all compared stories, and he looked the same, and the woman was I don't know what her job was, maybe just to stand and watch. But it was the strangest thing. But when I did leave, I did tell the woman and it was a woman who got the apartment, I told her about it.
Good for you. At least you warned somebody.
I had to warn her. I only stayed there a year, but and there was nothing I could do about it. You know, I couldn't keep him away. I couldn't figure out how to do it. Once we figured out what it was, and it was a creepy building anyway. I mean, it had like 4 levels down below, and you heard strange things, and that was where the laundry room was, and you didn't want to do laundry at night. So,
well, it was obviously the place. I mean, these others had not been having previous experiences until...
No, none of us had.
That's right. All right. Well, listen, thank you very much. There you have it again. And why wouldn't sex be a part of it? It is a central part of all human beings' lives, right?
I'm a retired Air Force field grade officer who has been one of the few fortunate ones to probably read all of the UFO reports that were available outside of Project Blue Book in a building in Washington, D.C. years ago called Tempo E.
Really?
It was an intelligence...
You've read all the secret stuff?
You got it. And I did tell this to one Air Force officer who I think is your MUFON director down in Florida, but I can't remember his name.
Yes.
And he got quite intrigued by it, and I'm trying to put some names together for him of those people that would be able to confirm that. And
Look. I got to cut through the quick here, and I've got to ask you, basically, what do you know that we don't? If you've really read these papers, sir.
No, these were reports.
Reports, all right, that's fine.
Intelligence reports.
Oh, okay, well, even better.
And they didn't deduce anything that said why or what they were. They just told what happened, where it happened, and when it happened, and copies were sent, that I recall, to the Defense Intelligence Agency. I don't remember if CIA or any other agency was a distribution for these.
Was there a conclusion?
There were no conclusions. No, they were strictly straight gathering of intelligence-type information.
Would somebody like yourself who read them come to a conclusion?
I came to the conclusion that there were many, many sightings that were never reported anyplace else except to this investigative intelligence agency, and then just filed, except what they were then subsequently transferred to DI, a Defense Intelligence Agency.
Yes.
And I'm not sure about the NSA or CIA because it's been too long ago that I've read them all, but there was a room with nothing but 5-drawer filing cabinets, and I had gotten special permission to go in and read them because I was in a special training situation. And I was just interested in the subject at the time. It wasn't until recently, till I moved out here in Nevada, that I've gotten more intrigued because of what we allegedly have out here in Area 51.
Did you sign a security statement?
Say again?
Again, I'll say, did you sign a security statement?
No, I was at the time holding the highest possible security clearance available in the Air Force at my level, which was an SSIR clearance, and it allowed me access to special intelligence.
Are you violating anything by telling us what you're telling us?
No, because I'm not telling you anything that most of the reports were secret.
Okay, that's why I asked you. A person reading them like yourself would conclude what? That we are being visited, that there are extraterrestrials, that the UFOs are really craft of some sort built by some kind of intelligence. Would you conclude that?
I would conclude that, and I would also deduce that there are many, many, many visits and sightings that have never been reported anywhere except in this data bank of files. Now, whether they've been subsequently reduced to microfiche, destroyed, or what have you, I really don't know. I've never followed up on it myself. I've been told that other people have tried to get to these files but haven't had the right nomenclature or coding, and have been turned down by the Air Force because they said we don't have these files.
So filing a Freedom of Information Act, even if you knew you were going after, would be of no use.
No, they have filed apparently Freedom of Information Acts with this agency asking for those reports. However, they've gotten back negative statements. They're not available. They're no longer available. They never were available. You don't have the right file number, the right case number, the right sequence number. And, of course, that's just a way of...
All right, let me try one more question. It's irresistible. You are familiar with the nomenclature?
Yes, and I reported that to that gentleman in Florida, and I'm trying to think of his name. But I think he's your...
It does not matter.
Director. But he's an Air Force type that was familiar with it and was going to search for a way to get access to these files, if they still exist.
All right, look, I can't spend any more time with this right now, but I would like you to contact me either by mail or fax.
Yeah, I'm going to fax you because I've had a hell of a time trying to reach you. It's just virtually impossible to get through any of the lines.
I know.
And I've just recently started to try this with you.
All right, fax me, and thank you.
This is Mike from New York. I'm calling because I recall a guest you had on several weeks ago who spoke of an incident occurring in Cheyenne Mountain, Wyoming.
Yes, you're exactly right. What he said, to catch the audience who might not have heard that, is that there are a whole bunch of Cheyenne employees who decided to retire early, took their families, and moved to, I think he said, South America?
Right, South America. And I guess it was Stan Deo from Australia who had some connection with a retired chaplain in the Army who had spoken to some of these people as they were passing through.
Yep, that's exactly right. And we had a number of people verify that. Now, that's scary as hell, because why would employees in Cheyenne Mountain suddenly decide to take their families and every friend they could convince and leave?
Right, and on a moment's notice, with the idea that they were exposed to, it's at least the impression I got, that they had access to information as it was fed into Cheyenne, Wyoming, that they saw something that scared them and prompted them to leave very quickly. And I'm wondering possibly if that's connected to what this caller was, this man who was frightened earlier was referring to in respect to some impending disaster or disasters.
Yeah, for a second, just forget about the fact that I seemed to be blown off the air. I mean, I've never seen it. Forget about that, and just go back to the content of the call as much as you heard.
Yeah, well, it was strange. I mean, I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to speaking on the radio, but I didn't know what happened. I thought possibly that you had gotten off the air with him and was speaking to him, and you had cut the music on yourself because it sounded like he was starting to lose it, and you were, just trying to calm him down. And
No, that call was completed. I mean, in the sense that I would say it went on probably another minute from that point, and then he screamed, and the connection terminated.
And the scream was not recorded by your network in Oregon?
No, because that's when we lost the satellite.
Right.
And I thought I was still on the air. I looked over, I saw my hotline from the network ringing. I picked it up, and they said, hey, we've lost you.
Right. And what do you think prompted the scream? Could you hear anything in that 1 minute that the network where we could no longer hear him, but you still could? What did he say during that 1 minute interval? Do you recall? Or? That would be interesting.
It was kind of like he realized that he had been on too long. I'm sort of paraphrasing the last minute because it was a very confused time. But I had the sense that he felt that he had been on too long, that somebody was on to him or something was about to happen to him, and then at the very end, this is all stuff you didn't hear.
Right.
It was kind of a scream and a screech and a cutoff, just a click.
And did the other man, the mystery or the penthouse guest in your studio, did he get to hear what you heard, or was it just like through your...
No, he got to hear what thank God. Yeah, you're right. You know what? Hold on a minute.
Okay.
Take those headphones off. Take those headphones off. talk to this caller. Hello?
Yeah, hi. I was wondering, did you got to hear that 1 minute interval of between when the network cut off and when the man screamed and hung up the phone, or was...
Well, actually, the call, what Art said is what happened. The call was completed, he screamed, and then the line went dead, and there was even another phone caller after that, I think an open line caller, and he was talking for a while, and it was during that call that I think Art realized that we weren't broadcasting.
Right. No, I understand that. I was just getting at during that 1 minute, when Art replayed what the network had on tape, we got to hear the caller who was, disturbed, what he had to say until that instant when it was cut off for us. But you still got to hear another minute of that phone call.
Yeah, it's hard to say how much more of that there was, but yeah, probably about a minute.
About a minute. Mm-hmm. And during that time, you couldn't relay to the audience anything additionally as to what the caller was saying or about disasters or anything else. Did he give anything more specific, or could you hear anything in the background? I mean, was it like, did someone run up to the phone and knock it out of his hand, or, could you tell?
Well, I actually had thought it sounded something like that, or the phone dropping. It was hard to tell, and I think it got kind of more and more rambling toward the end, and more disconnected. But
okay,
yeah,
no, that's fine. I was just, as I was saying to Art, that he had a caller who several weeks ago mentioned a bunch of employees, or now former employees, of Cheyenne Mountain in Wyoming, which is connected with, I think, NORAD or SAC or something, and into which is fed all of the electronic and other intelligence information from around the world, vis-a-vis the federal government. And it's the impression I got, and I know some other people who listened that they got as well, was that these people saw something that scared the heck out of them, and it was something that they thought they could survive by leaving the country. And here this caller earlier, this disturbed man, is saying there are impending disasters which can be avoided. There are safe areas that you can go to, but the government or the people in power are not going to inform the average, citizen, the average American, of these things, because it's going to serve some purpose that they have. Yet the people in Cheyenne Mountain, Wyoming, who presumably, possibly have access to this same information, saw this stuff. At least this is the conclusion maybe I'm coming to. Not categorically or absolutely, but there is some kind of an overlap here. Possibly saw the same information and decided to get to one of these so-called safe areas.
Yeah, well, I recall the show, but I wouldn't know anything
more about that. I just figured I'd bring it up as maybe an issue. Maybe someone else can call in, or someone who knows more about this Cheyenne Mountain.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to put Art back on.
Okay.
All right, I'm here again.
Yeah, okay.
Listen, all right, I heard all that, and I appreciate your call.
Okay.
And it's worthy, it's noteworthy what you said, the connection you make, and I'll think about that.
Yeah, I living in New York, I get your show on the skip from various cities, so I don't get to hear it every night. So maybe I was thinking I missed something in the interim. But
no, you heard an interesting show tonight, for sure.
How you doing?
Fine, Greg. What's going on?
Well, a number of years ago, I was a nurse at the University of Utah down in Salt Lake City. I worked on the med-surgical floor up there. And one weekend, I happened to be taking care of a patient. Are you familiar with Dugway Proving Grounds?
I am, indeed.
I was taking care of a patient. I imagine he must have been Army. He had short cropped hair. He had broken his leg while out at Dugway working with something that he didn't want to talk about. Okay. And, me, I'm kind of nosy. I would try to get it out of him, never did.
Sure.
So, anyways, that day, we knew he was going to be transferred. That day, two guys show up. Now, they weren't wearing sunglasses, but they were wearing suits. And they were rather intimidating-looking individuals. But they came to pick him up. Now, you would have figured Dugway, Army, they would have been Army corpsmen or something like that. Mm-hmm. But these guys show up. They're in suits, civilian clothing. They wouldn't say where they were taking him. As a matter of fact, at hospitals, when you transfer a patient, this is what I thought was really peculiar. You normally will give copies of records for it to go along with the patient.
Medical records, yes.
Right. they refused to allow the originals to remain at the facility. As a matter of fact, they would not leave the nursing floor with the patient. They kept them on a gurney until they talked with my nurse manager, and they pulled her off to the side. Next thing you know, she handed him the records, and he was gone and was just disappeared, you know.
So,
gone.
okay.
Nobody knew where he was going. With the records, we had no records of him ever being there.
All right, so medical men in black.
Yeah, so there's a good example of your basic governmentally connected men in black. That's one of the major categories. You know, if you'd like, Art, I've got a pretty cool Dugway Proving Ground story.